Become a king of hearts. That is what I ask all of you to do in this new year. Become a king of hearts. Become someone who, because a king understands his citizens, doesn't he? At least he's supposed to. A king is someone who understands his citizens. A king is someone who must have a deep sense of compassion and kindness towards his citizens. And such a king is always loved by his people. I want all of you to be a king of hearts. Strive for that. Do whatever is in your capability, in your power, to become a king of hearts. To do that, you've got to understand that this is only a heart. This is just a heart. By heart, what I mean is, this is just a mind. Remember we talked about this last week. Hurt people. Hurt people. Yeah. Hurt people hurt people. So when you see that someone is hurt, expect them to hurt. Isn't it? If you know that someone's hurt, then expect for them to hurt you. Why do you expect anything else? Because that's what hurt people do. They hurt. They hurt others. See if you can be that, and Guru Thero's words, that shock absorber. They have a huge shock inside them that they want to get out, that they want to relieve, that they want to vent. See if you can be the person that's there to absorb it when it happens. See if you can absorb that shock. Because if you can be that person who absorbs that shock, and then still be there standing at the end of it, remember you have just become a greater person than you were before you walked into that situation. Because what doesn't break you makes you stronger. And that makes you greater. Good people care about themselves, but they don't exploit or hurt or harm others in the pursuit of that, of their wants and needs. But great people, they're willing to sacrifice whatever they have. Because they don't see a they and I, a you and I, a we and them. What they see is simply the common problem. Let me put it in an analogy, words that perhaps our younger children might be able to better relate to. Let's say your mother is poorly. Not poor, poorly, meaning ill. Okay? And let's say there are other siblings in the family. Okay, so you say you are one of three. Your other two siblings are better off than you are. And perhaps you're just about able to make ends meet. So you earn just enough to keep the wolf from the door. So now, when your mother is poorly and she needs treatment, but you can't afford it, you do whatever you can to get her the best medicines, but now you've run out. There's nothing else you could do, next to starving and giving her whatever food you have. But you know that your brothers, your sisters, your siblings are able to look after her. Question. Let's assume that they are not as keen on looking after her as you are. Okay? Okay? They're not as keen on looking after her as you are. Question. At what point would you stop appealing to them? Begging at their feet? Pleading to them? Yielding to their every need and every ask and every demand? If they promise to look after your mother, at what point will you stop? Will you? No. Because now you see a common problem. Because she's your mother just as much as she is their mother. And she's their mother just as much as she's your mother. So now you have a common problem. In fact, you would walk up to them and say, Ayya, I'm not asking for myself. I'm asking for our mother. She's your mother just as much as she's mine. We got to look after her. And if I had the means, I wouldn't bother you, I wouldn't trouble you. But I need your help at this point. I need you to do it for me, at least. Do it for her. Look after her because I need you at this point to step forward and do it. I'm going to try and find the means to do it, but until then I need you to do it. Please, please, please. They say, no, I don't have. I've got my family to look after. I've got my wife to look after. I've got my children. They go to international schools. We have to pay their tuition fees. And every other week we go to a restaurant. So how can we afford that if we have to spend that money on our mother? 2 weeks from now we've got a trip planned to Singapore and it's going to cost us a fair few pennies. How can we go there if we have to spend the money on our mother? You'll be like, huh? But to them, that'll be normal. Because they're self before others. But sometimes you would even try and reason with them. But maybe you don't have to go to Singapore. Maybe this year you can stay and do a staycation maybe, and next year you can go on that trip. Maybe we can, give that money for mother's operation. How about that? Please, I beg you. Maybe I'll come and work at your house. I'll do some of the laborious work. I'll labor around. You don't have to pay me. Can you get mother's medicines for her? Can you get her operation done? You might ask. See, at no point are you going to stop pleading to them because you have a common problem. Because your victory is their victory. And their victory is your victory. Their failure is your failure. And your failure is their failure, although at this point they don't realize that. They don't realize that just yet. But you know that one day they'll understand. Perhaps it's when mother's gone. Perhaps it's then. Sometimes we understand the value of things when they are with us no longer, right? It's just the way the world is. But one day they'll understand. And then perhaps at that point it's too late. Too little too late to save mother. So you keep on pleading to them, you keep on appealing, you keep begging at their feet. You say, I'll do whatever. Tell me whatever. I'll do it. Please, can you attend to mother? Because you have a common problem. Your problem is their problem. In fact, now you don't have a their and your. You just have a problem. Now that is what I mean. The only reason that you feel that both I and my friend, I and my enemy, we should all try and attain Nibbana is because Nibbana hasn't happened entirely within you. That is why you still feel that there's them, and me, and we should all try and attain Nibbana, and I'm not going to do anything to get in their way. Mentally imagine yourself as an arahant. Now all you see is a common problem. And that common problem is jati. This is why I asked you the other day, if there were two arahants, so this is a hypothetical situation. There were two arahants, and you went up to them and said, Venerable Sir, unfortunately we have to break some bad news to you. One of you will have to give up your arahanthood and go back to becoming a mundane person or a pruthakjana, or at least an anagami. And perhaps that Rahatan Vahanse, from the point he was an anagami person, he strived for 10, 15, 20 years to attain that arahathood. And in this lifetime he's not going to be able to become an arahant again because he just doesn't have the time to practice that. Let's imagine that hypothetical situation. You ask the two Rahatan Vahanses, which one of you, sir, are willing to step forward, or is willing to step forward and to give up your arahanthood? What do you think they'll say? Take your pick. Because at that point they're not going to say, take this one. Please leave me. I strived so hard to attain this arahathood. You can spot the real arahant that way. You know how they spotted who was the real mother of the child? The old story. When they said, let me split the child up. You take half, you take the other half. The real mother of the child stepped forward and said, what? No, it's fine. Let this woman keep the child. I've heard that story in lots of different places. The first time I learned it was when I was again 12 years old. And someone taught me the story of Akbar and Bilbal. I don't know if any of you listen to those stories. Yeah, that's when I first heard it. But then they say it appears in Jataka stories and here, there and everywhere. Anyhow, the story is still valid. So that's how you spot the real mother. So in much the same way, you spot the real Arahant. You can identify the real Arahant when you ask them, which of you is willing to sacrifice your Arahanthood for someone else? Because it's not someone else anymore. You see, the battle is with ignorance and attachment, not with the other person. It's with ignorance and attachment. As a mother to a child, you know that when a child does not perform well at school, you know when a child does not eat well, when a child does not sleep well, when a child misbehaves, is it just the child's problem? Do you not have a vested interest in making sure that the child performs well, does well, eats well, sleeps well? Because the child's problem is also your problem. When the child is in your womb as a mother, did you not change your habits, your lifestyle habits, didn't you? The way you ate changed. The people you associated changed. The places you went to and the places you avoided, they changed. You didn't hang around with the people that you used to because they used to smoke. You didn't hang around with the people that you couldn't refuse a drink if you used to do that. Because you knew if I'm going to be there, I'm going to have to take it and it's not good for the child. There were certain foods that you loved to eat but you had to stop. There were certain things that you hated but you had to. Lots of sacrifices you made because you wanted every goodness to come to the child. That is how, because you know that this child is born within me and I need to give every ounce of love and compassion I have towards this child. A mother is a king of hearts to the child. That is the motherly instinct, the motherly compassion. Now imagine if you could extend that out to all sentient beings. To do that, you need to recognize that the problem here is simply the common problem, which is just jati, which is this ignorance and attachment. Because once you spot that, folks, once you spot the mosquito in the room, once you spot that, you immediately stop seeing me and they and you and them and us and all that. First person, third person, what's the other one? Middle person. Second person, yes, thank you. First person, second person, third person, they all go out. That's why they have these pronouns, right? Because when there's separation in this world, you need somehow to express that separation. The world has been constructed for people who experience separation to live comfortably. But the truth is, there is no such thing. There's no first person, second person, or third person. There are only bodies and minds. What minds do is they mind. They mind sights, sounds, smells, taste, touch, and thoughts of Dhamma. That's what they mind. And simply the job of a news reporter. This has happened, that has happened, the other has happened. This is all that thoughts do. This is what the mind does. But in addition to that, there's this rogue process that is unwelcome. This rogue process which hijacks this mind, and in that mind where everything is just calm and serene and cool and peaceful, something happens. And now you immediately begin to feel that there's an I, and there's a them, and there's my children, and there's my family, right? So, something else Guru Handru, or as he was explaining this concept, he said, people with a small heart, I don't mean physically now, of course, right? People with a small heart, the extent to which they can extend love, so understand love in the right words, okay? The extent to which they can extend this love, loving kindness, because they only have a small heart, that radius, if you call it the blast radius, is very small. It only extends as far as this. This is the extent that will reach. I. The very small heart. There's no room for others in that heart. It's a very small heart. There's only room for me. As I say, this room ain't big enough for the two of us. Yes. So true. If you have a very small heart, there's not enough room for the two of us. There's only enough room for one of us. And that one person is going to be there. And he's going to reign there. He's going to be king. So they'll only look after themselves. Look after their needs and their wants. Their satisfaction, their fulfillment, their joys. And will do anything and everything to keep themselves happy. He said, don't be that kind of person. He said, it's far better to be someone who has a bigger heart, into which you can fit a few more people at the very least. Someone who's so self-obsessed will not even have a family. Some people who are so self-obsessed, they won't have a family. Because they don't even have enough room in their hearts to look after another person, make a sacrifice for another person. Now, that's not to say that anyone who lives by themselves is a very selfish person. There are hermits who live in the Himalayas. They are oozing with compassion and loving kindness and abundance. They feel that their entire world is their family, so they don't need to make family with just one or two people. That's a different story. But what I'm saying is there are people out there, they are so self-obsessed. They are the center of the universe that they are not willing to make even the smallest sacrifice for another person. So therefore, they are fearful of sharing their life, their homes, their bedrooms, their bed with another person. Because they feel that is a threat. They're so scared, they're so worried, very nervous, anxious, paranoid. Now you can begin to understand where all these mental conditions come from. This is lovely territory to be walking down. As we do every talk, we discover something new. It's very enlightening. Why are people so paranoid? Because they fear threats to their very being. When their very being is threatened, or they at least feel, because threatening is something that someone feels. It's a perception. Fear is a perception. Fear is not a real thing. That's why they say, fear and do it anyway. You heard that? That's what we teach. Our young Anagarika Putas and our Anagarika Lokaputas and Swami Mahansis and whoever. If they fear something, the other day, right? 13-year-old young Anagarika Puta came and said, Swami Mahansis, I'm really scared. Of what? Of the dark. I said, why? What's wrong? No, the dark. Yeah? What about the dark? I'm scared. Why? I don't know, I'm scared. I don't want to go in the dark. The funny thing is, this is a 13-year-old, right? Can you believe me? 2 weeks later, a 33-year-old came and said that. This is this Anagarika Puta, and you have this Anagarika Puta. And they're both scared of the dark. So now you see, you've got to be able to look at that mind as a mother would a child. So it's not right to say, how dare you, look at yourself in the mirror. You're old enough to be the father to 3 children. You're scared of the dark? How ridiculous. That's not going to help him, is it? Because fear is a perception. What can you do if the perception occurs? It occurs. It's like an itch. It's like when you want to sneeze. Imagine someone said, don't you sneeze. You go. When it's building up, and someone comes and puts a gun to your head, sneeze, and that will be the last time you do. Is that reasonable? Is that fair? No, because it's not something you can help. You got to understand. They're just minds. You got to be gentle with them. This is also good advice for parents. Bringing up their children. Right? Sometimes a child won't behave the way you want them. Always try and spot that this is simply ignorance and attachment having hijacked my child. It's not them. It's someone doing it to them. And that someone is that ignorance. That someone is that attachment. That someone is that jati. So your fight is not with the child. Your fight is not with your husband. Your fight is not with your wife, or with your mother, or with your siblings. Because hurt people, remember? No one goes around hurting themselves. I remember when I wanted to apply to those days, medical college. Once I went to this seminar, and for an open day, and then there was a chap who he looked self-important, I'll put it that way, and so he was like, I don't like the way the world is. I said, what's wrong with you, dude? So he was saying, all these people in this world, I don't know why they cause themselves all this pain. He wasn't talking like about the Dhamma. He's like, why do people smoke? They shouldn't be smoking. Now look at all these smokers. Because of them, we have all this trouble at the NHS, and there's not enough hospitals. And if they just stopped smoking, how easy would it be? So there was a Q&A session at the end of this talk, and he thought he was very smart. So he wrote down a question. I saw him writing it. Like, why are people so selfish and why do they smoke? Why are people so selfish and why do they eat so much? To obesity. Huh? Then if not for people like them, we wouldn't have to work so hard. We wouldn't have to struggle so hard. We wouldn't have to have these hospitals, and we wouldn't have been so understaffed. Huh? Why can't they just look after themselves and be mindful and respectful towards others and just off with themselves? So he wrote this sheet of paper and he passed it down, thinking that he was asking a very intelligent question. So when the question reached the podium, this person picked it up and he said, So she read out the question and she said, that's a really interesting question. She said, that's a really interesting question. Please, for the gentleman who asked this question, or the lady who asked this question, please make themselves known. So you can imagine how eager this person was, right? So this is applying for medical college, right? And they look for how willing you are and how compassionate you are to others, and how your heart melts, right? In the face of other people's pain and suffering, right? So a question like this, you can imagine the uproar it must have caused, right? So, but calm and cool as a cucumber, she says, can the person who sent this question please make themselves known? Like, can the real Slim Shady please stand up? So this person stood up. It's like, sir, could you just come and speak with this gentleman? And she ushered him out of the room with another person, and that was the end of it. We never saw him again. He never returned. I think he got told where he had to go. They decided he wasn't doctor material. There was no way they could mold him into becoming a doctor, because he just didn't have the attitudes. He just didn't have that compassion to be a doctor. Now, imagine an arahant, someone who wishes to be an arahant. You can't be angsty with people. You can't be faced by people who suffer. Just because someone is annoyed, because someone has defilements, because someone is angry or irritated or agitated, or because they conduct themselves in ways that would be scorned in society, it is not an arahant's place or an arahant aspirant's place to criticize them, to mock them, to ridicule them, to punish them. Because if they do so, then they have missed the common enemy. Now you're attacking that person. What you should really be doing is identifying this is not them. This is simply ignorance and attachment, or jati doing its dirty tricks on this mind. That is being mindful. So you see, to be mindful, you don't need a program. Life is your program. That is the mindfulness program. You're living it 24/7. I remember last week we talked about this. Never run away in the face of adversity. We talked about this last week. Be mindful in the face of adversity. Mindful about what? Hurt people hurt people. So if you're being hurt, then it's because they are hurt. Your compassion should extend beyond this 6 feet, 1 foot wide, 6 feet tall, right? Your compassion should extend beyond that and reach farther out to encompass more ailing hearts. And then get it to stretch even further, extend even further. Reach out to your neighbors, reach out to your workplace, reach out to your friends, reach out to the rest of the country, reach out to the rest of the world. Because wherever you look, wherever you see, there'll always be bodies and minds stuck in those bodies, ailing. Ailing because of one common problem, and that is jati. When you start to see the world in that way, folks, you will recognize that your forehead will stop wrinkling in the face of problems. You will experience that. Things that used to make you go will make you go, it's okay, Buddha, it's okay. I understand. It's all right. I understand why you feel that way. I understand where you're coming from. I understand why it's difficult for you. I want you to be able to say it and actually mean it. Because it's supposedly the good thing, the nice thing to say, right? When you're in a conflict, you're supposed to acknowledge the other person's dissatisfaction, their problem, their discontentment, and apparently that is the first step to problem resolution. What I'm trying to get you and to help you do, folks, is to really identify with that and say it because you mean it, not like you mean it. You got to say it like you mean it? No. Say it because you mean it. Say it because you mean it. When you say, I understand. Someone comes and complains. This is what they should teach in complaint handling courses. All businesses, island-wide, should be taught these lessons. Businesses can become successful if only they learned how to become a king of hearts. But this is all anchored and centered in the Dhamma. Without the Dhamma, without a lesson on jati, without this discourse on jati, you can only try and train yourself to do this forcefully. Yeah? That's what they do in these good training programs and courses. They say, right, if you get angry, don't respond to your customer at that point. Walk away. Get someone else to come and step in and let them deal with the situation. Or go for a walk. Count to 10. Do all these things. But that's never the answer to the problem. In fact, it's never the solution to the problem. It might be an answer to that question, but it's not the answer, it's not the solution to the problem. The problem always remains. You've answered the question. The problem remains because the problem does not require an answer, it requires a solution. But once you start to spot jati, now it's not a case of me against you. It's a case of the both of us against a common enemy. So, let's both fight this battle now. Now you want to help them. You want to save them. Now you become a savior. You become like God. You become a savior. This is what being a king of hearts is about. Put yourself in those situations, and when you are, today if anyone would come and say, Swaminatha, I was in this situation, I got really angry, right? And at that point I, gave a real verbal abuse to the other person, right? I taught them a good lesson. I would always hope that, I'd say, next time you feel that way, how about you come and do it in front of me? Because you did it in the presence of someone who was not able to give you a bit of TLC. What's TLC? Tender loving care. You did it in the presence of someone who wasn't able to give you a bit of TLC. But if you only came and did it in front of me, then I wouldn't shout back. I wouldn't retaliate. All I'd say is, I see, I understand. What do I understand? Yeah. Perhaps I don't understand a word they're saying, but that's not what I say I understand. Maybe they're shouting at me in Chinese. Huh? Maybe they're yelling at me at the top of their voice in a language that I don't even know a single word of. But I'll still say, I understand. I understand you. Because I actually understand you. I understand you. It's okay. It's okay, I understand you. And I am sorry. Now you see, I am sorry simply rolls off the tongue. There's no problem saying I'm sorry anymore. Because you're not sorry about what you've done or what they've done. It's not like that. You're sorry about the common problem. You're sorry about something they should also be, but they just don't know it yet. That is what you're sorry about. I'm sorry. You don't have to say, I'm sorry about Jati. You don't need to say that. You say, I'm sorry. I really am sorry. But what you mean is, I'm sorry that this has happened. Let me help you. In fact, your sorry might be enough to get them on the track to recovery. That's all they need. You know, most people, when they're angry, what's the best medicine there is for a person who's angry? Huh? An apology, right? That's all they're looking for. See how much ignorance belittles someone and demeans someone? Huh? A man who is having a hissy fit of rage, and they're threatening to burn the whole world down, right? And completely devastate everything around them. The moment you say, I'm really sorry, and I'm honestly, I'm so sorry that happened. Fine, then it's okay. Huh? Then it's okay. Where's all that anger gone? And you thought you'd have to say sorry at least 1,000,000 times, and then beg at their feet and pray to them and worship and then do an incense stick and make an offering or whatever. And do a puja in front of them. No, all you said was, I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. Anger gone. Because anger is a manifestation. Anger is a perception. Anger is something the mind cooks up by itself because he's a hurt person. Therefore he's hurting you. You got to be a king of hearts. You got to be a king of hearts. Study that situation. Immediately, stop seeing the person. That's what I'm asking you to do. In practical words, what I'm asking you to do is stop seeing the person and see the heart. What do I mean by heart here? The mind. See the heart. Look at the heart and tell yourself, it's simply a heart. It's just a heart. It's just a heart. And a heart that is hurt. A hurt heart. Because a hurt heart can be very hard. So, when you come across a hurt heart, you got to spot that. All you got to do is work your magic. And that working magic starts with your understanding and realization of the Dhamma. Starts with that. While you're trying to realize the Dhamma and understand and comprehend the Dhamma, while you're in this process of listening to the sermons and contemplating and working towards that enlightenment, practice as much you can this metta. Practice metta as much as you can. Mindfully try and be aware that, because actually, your understanding of the Dhamma and your application of the Dhamma is metta. I put it that way. Understanding of Dhamma is one. Application of Dhamma towards sentient beings comes fourfold. Metta, Karuna, Mudita and Upeksha. That is your application of it. So your understanding of Dhamma can be perceived from the outside when you expound, when you express, when you share metta. Because if you are to share the opposite of those things, now it's easy to tell. You've not understood Just the tiniest bit of Dhamma. You haven't understood, you haven't realized the Dhamma. You are not a Buddha Putra. What does it matter that I'm in a robe if I can't give people metta, if I can't give people karuna and mudita and upeksha? What's the purpose of this? What's the meaning of this? I don't own this then. I'm not a rightful owner to this. When you see a Swami Nuhanse, don't you feel a sense of deep respect? Simply when you see a robe, that sight itself. Because, this image has something about it. It is an emblem. So, once we don this, now it becomes our life's purpose and our life's duty to fulfill the role that is expected of you when you wear this uniform. This is a uniform. Much the same as what you are wearing right now. That is also a uniform. You're clad in white. White is a symbol of purity. Pureness of heart. So if this is the King of Hearts, these are the bishops, or these are the knights, one day hopefully to become kings. You have all been knighted. As I say, united. You stand, right? So now you are knighted. So, united. So, I want you all to be like an army. We are all an army. Our battle is with the common enemy. But the enemy doesn't know that. So in the conventional sense, the enemy, the person who has a go at you, the person who tries to attack you, they don't know that. They think you are the enemy. That's like a child. When you ask the child, Buddha, go and do your homework, please. Say, no, not doing homework. Please go and do your homework. They think they're doing it for you. That's why they're not willing to do it. Yes or no, mothers or fathers? No? That's why they don't want to do it, because they think they're doing it for you. One day they're going to realize they're doing it for whom? For themselves. When that day dawns, now you don't need to be on their case. They'll go and do it. But you as a mother, you as a father, know that for this child does not understand the problem today. But one day, despite them not understanding the problem today, they will suffer the consequences one day. And when that day comes, perhaps I won't be here to look after them. So therefore, I must encourage them, inspire them, ignite that desire within them to try and solve their problem and get them to do what they need to do now so that they can reap the rewards later. See, that you do with compassion. Sometimes you might not do it for the child next door, but you do it for your own child. If you've ever been in a position where you've had to hit your child, okay? There is a way you can hit your child with compassion. I'm not condoning corporal punishment. So at our monastery, we don't do that. But, only yesterday, we had some new young children that we took on. The youngest one is 6. I know, we are crazy. They are special cases because for them, both mother and father have come into the sasana. The mother is an anagarika and the father is a monk, or become an anagarika, going on to become a monk. And if we didn't take the child on now, then the mother has to wait until the child is 14 to enter the anagarika program. By that time, sometimes her youth have passed her by. So you want to give her the opportunity to come and join the army, the noble clan, and start working on her deliverance, on her liberation. So therefore, we've gone the extra mile and said, okay, we'll take them on as well. Yesterday I was here in Hindi class. And one young child was screaming at the top of his voice, So we had to stop the class for a few moments because he was so loud, screaming. Because the mother had to go to the Anagarika. But the father is here. The father is a monk. But the child, he's still just getting used to it. It's like your first day at Montessori, right? The first day you cry because you don't want your mother to leave. The second day you cry because you don't want your mother to come and take you back. Young children, right? Because they have small hearts. We need to teach them how to grow that heart. Because right now they're concerned about themselves. That's what being a kid is all about. See if you're still a kid. A kid is someone who can only care about themselves. Who only knows to care about themselves. My happiness, my safety. They're very, very careful about who they associate. Because stretching outside of that is going to, encroach, and they're going to have to sacrifice their comfort. They're stepping outside their comfort zones. They are innocent, yes, of course they are, but this is the mind we are talking about. Really, a kid is innocent simply because a kid does not have a lot of knowledge. That's why. But a kid is no saint. You can understand that. Remember, this is a kid who died as an adult. Or maybe it was a dangerous person back then. So this is the same mind. Just you've taken out the memory card, right? And you've taken out knowledge, and now they're just left with their basic instincts. That's what this is. That is why a kid is apparently harmless. But when a kid is angry, when a kid is upset, it expresses that dissatisfaction, that anger, that frustration by crying. Because that's all it knows how to do. If it knew how to shoot with a gun, it would do that. Otherwise, the best way to get someone into the heavens is what? As soon as the child is born. I'm not going to say the rest of it. Yeah. It doesn't work like that. They're no saint. A saint is made. Saints aren't born. They're made. Only the Dhamma can do that. So that is what we are going to do with these young children. And the best part about that is, they are starting out at such a young age, they will not have the misfortune of the evil and bad associations that you and I might sometimes have had to go through in our lives. So they're going to grow up in and amongst noble ones. In and amongst kings and knights of hearts. You will be their parents. Perhaps on some occasions we might have to ask you to come and spend some time with them. Can you look after them while we have the sermon? You might have to do that. The Anagarika Mahatmyas have volunteered. Quite a few of them have a lot of experience working with young children. So they have volunteered to give up a part of their time, in the time that they have set aside for serving the sasana. Because that is serving the sasana, isn't it? If I started out at this age, right, and in the last 5 years I can see how much change has happened within me. Imagine this, but starting at 6 and then at 11, without all the rubbish, like double filtered water. It'll be like feeding them distilled water. That's what's going to happen with them. So I think, good things will happen. And they will go on to, practice the path. They will go on to become Anagarika Mahatmyas, the 18 minors, and then they go on to become senior Anagarika Mahatmyas, and then one day they will enter robes, and I don't know, perhaps they'll enter robes as Ratan Mahatmyas. It's quite possible. It's quite possible. You're doused in Dhamma, and doused in compassion, and kindness, mercy. These wonderful things. They don't know what evilness is about. Because it may linger in their hearts, but they're not given the opportunity for that burning embers to start a fire again. So therefore, while it remains in embers, we put it out. Because the thing is, once the fire lights, now it causes harm and damage to everyone around them, and then all of those things are demeritorious. And then every demeritorious deed you do steps you away from attaining liberation, attaining happiness. So that is the real benefit that they are going to gain. Now I know what these doers are thinking. What about us? What about us? Yes, soon. Keep on healing hearts. That is what you need to do. Keep on healing hearts. You're all knights and dames. So keep on healing hearts. In the presence of adversity, when you know that someone's trying to hurt you, recognize that that's a hurt person. That's why they're hurting me. So it's no good for you also to become a hurt person. Because now when you become a hurt person, what are you going to do? You're also going to hurt. And then an eye for an eye, and the whole world goes blind. Isn't it? An eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. So don't be someone like that. Be a king of hearts. Be a knight of hearts. So this is the mindfulness that you need to always have about you. Always try and get yourself onto that track. There will be times where you will steer off track. Right? That will happen. Because it is through practice that you need to keep yourself on that lane. Right? So this is lane guidance. Being here gives you ample lane guidance. Your Piritnola gives you lane guidance. These modern motor cars, they have lane guidance, right? Don't they? Yeah. So, you also can have lane guidance. So when you start steering off the path, there'll be a little alarm bell that rings. Teet, 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 teet. When you're in and amongst noble friends, they will be the best alarms. Hey, you, get back. That is why it is so wise of you to consciously choose the 5 people that you want to spend your time with. Every 6 to 7 months, it's a very good thing to do. Remind yourself, who are the 5 people I spend most of my time with? Ask yourself, why have most people come and try to settle down or in and around the monastery, in the Sudha Ministry village? Because it's that association that they're looking for. Because they know, if ever we try to steer off path, right, these Swaminathanas will put us back on track. Because we will not allow you to retaliate. It is forbidden. Retaliation is forbidden. You can only retaliate in kindness. You can only retaliate with compassion. So if ever someone comes to take an eye, you give an eye and a heart. There's the eye, here's the heart. It's happened, in the past. Utpalavanna, Maharaj Tirminvansi. One day she was having rest in her kuti, and someone who had been mesmerized by her beauty. He'd always kept an eye on her and always wanted to, be with her. And so he was mesmerized by her eyes. Apparently it was the eyes that was, for him, the great appeal. So one day he'd hid himself under her bed, and then when she'd gone round on arms and returned to her kuti, this person comes out from under the bed and then says, right, now you're going to be with me. So the Rahatan Mahansa. Now, remember, she is a Queen of Hearts. She's a Queen of Hearts. So this man's asking for an eye. Because actually she asks this man, Sir, what are you so mesmerized about? What is it about me that you want? Because in the back of her mind she's thinking, if this man puts not his hand but a finger on me, the amount of demerit that he is going to cause himself, he's going to destroy him and completely going to ruin his entire samsara for a very long time to come. Because in the process of him doing whatever he wants to me, I'll probably die. So then he's going to commit a heinous sin as well on top of all that. I don't want that to happen to him. She spots the common enemy. At which point she had already defeated the enemy. But she knows who the enemy is. See, she's trying to save him from the enemy. Isn't that beautiful? She's trying to save him from the enemy. She's not trying to save herself from him. That is what regular people do. Regular people. Average people, that's what they do. They try to save themselves from others. Great people try to save others from the real enemy. They don't see this man as a threat. How about that for size? Huh? She doesn't see that he is a threat. She doesn't perceive him as a threat. And even he must think, I'm going to get what I want today. I'm not going to let you go. You might be scared right now. Right? You might despise me right now. But I don't care because I'm here to get what I want and I'm not going to leave until I get what I want. And he's probably thinking, by hook or by crook, I'm going to get what I want. So you better not fight. You better comply. Right? If you're not going to give me what I want, I'll do anything and whatever it takes to get what I want. So in fact, he feels that she's a threat. A threat to achieving what he wants. This man thinks that Rahatan Mahansa is a threat to him. Oh, how blind can one be? He doesn't spot the enemy. Because the enemy is king right now in his kingdom. The enemy is king. Jati is king in his kingdom. But the Rahataran Mahansa spots this. Now, she's always a mother. And in front of her is standing what? Who? A child. A baby. An infant. If you remember as a mother, when your 2-year-old came and kicked you, you said, give me what I want, give me what I want, give me what I want. I'm going to kick you and hit you and... Especially if they've, learned these things at school or, Montessori or maybe on TV. Right? I'm going to hit you and I'm going to kick you and I'm going to kill you. I've heard some young children threaten their mothers like that. Only this big. As they say, not the size of 2 lemons. Huh? But threatening. I hit you and I kick you and I kill you. So this is how this Rahataran Mahansa feels about this man. He's here to rape her. And so she asks, Sir, what is it you want? What have you come for? Oh, your eyes. When I see those eyes, I can't look away. I just want them. I need to be with you. Now, I need to be with you today. I'm not going to leave until you give me you. Give me yourself. Surrender yourself to me. I'm here to devour you. So she says, this is the appeal? This eye? Is that what you want? See, now you're waiting in the story for her to give her eye to him, right? Did you miss that she'd already given something? What had she already given? Her heart. She'd already given her heart. She'd given that away the moment he set eyes on her. The moment she spotted him, she'd already given her heart away. He doesn't know that. He's already got her heart. It's too big for him to even carry it. Huh? Him and his entire clan can fit into it, and then there'll still be space. Because there's enough room for the whole world in there. She'd already given him her heart, and he's still asking for her eye. Something so small. When she'd already given him something so huge, something so big, something magnanimous. So she says, okay, why do you go through all this trouble? You don't have to go through all this trouble. Let me do you a favor. So she digs her fingers into her eye socket and plucks her eye out. And says, this is what you want, sir? There you go. You may have it. She did it so that he didn't have to. Think about that. She did it so he didn't have to. Because she knows that if he did it, then there's never going to be a day when he's going to become a king of hearts. Certainly not for a very long time to come. Because as she is king, as she is queen of that kingdom, she wants more citizens. She wants more peasants, more citizens. As any king would like. More people in the kingdom. That's what the Buddha did from the moment he ordained, right? He went looking for the first 5 citizens of his kingdom. And then he went on giving on this gift. He went on knighting people. And every time he knighted someone, he said, right now it's your duty to go and knight someone else. Go on. Train yourself for about 5 years under your teacher. And then once you have trained yourself, now you can go and knight someone else. And may the kingdom grow. A kingdom where everyone is a king of hearts. That is what we belong to. So that is what she did. She did something so that he didn't have to. And at that point he was shocked. He couldn't believe his eyes. He couldn't believe what just happened. He never thought for a moment that she would make such a sacrifice. See, only then he thinks that she's made a sacrifice. He doesn't know that she'd already given him a huge gift. The moment he walked into that room and said, I'm going to have you today. The thing is, he didn't know that she had already had him. He was the prey, and she was the predator. He thought he was the predator and that she was the prey, because she's queen of hearts. She'd already given her compassion and kindness. This is the kind of person you need to be. This is the stuff that arahants are made of. Becoming an arahant is a series of cause and effect. And arahanthood is an effect. It needs to manifest, as all things. It doesn't fall out of the sky. It doesn't grow on trees. It doesn't blow in the wind. It's not something you step on by mistake. Arahants aren't born. They're made. Your task is to make an arahant. Making an arahant is about making yourself a king or a queen of hearts. You have all embarked on that journey as knights. Even from the little ones. See, Saturday afternoon, Saturday morning, they come here and they sit down in this sermon. And this is not what normal children do. Is something wrong with you children? This is not what normal children do. What's wrong with them? Look at this child. It's not what normal children do. Come here, sit down at Swami. It's just stare at him. Not a sound from them. No trouble, no bother, nothing at all. Half of these things they might not even understand. But for the half that they do, they're still here. You can't tell me they come here for the roti. When at home pizza is the alternative, why come here for a roti? These are very abnormal children. They don't belong to this world. They have become aliens in this world. That is why their citizenship in this world will not be for long. Their days are numbered. They won't be here for long. They'll be expelled. You shall be expelled for your sins. Your membership will be terminated. You'll be kicked out. Never to come back. There are also Knights of Hearts. So this is your mindfulness, folks. Be always mindful about this. So, for this you don't need a karmasthana. You don't need to be chanting something all the while, all the time. Right? Adversity is a real builder of character. It is adversity that made a Buddha. Don't forget that. If you think what's his name? No. Devadatta. If you think that Devadatta was an evil person, a very bad person, terrible person, why didn't he just leave the Bodhisattva on his own? Right? Why couldn't he just mind his own business and let the Bodhisattva do his job and become a Buddha sooner? It would not have happened. Wouldn't have happened. We'd still be, Siddhartha Gautama would still be a Bodhisattva if it wasn't for Devadatta. He helped the Buddha aspirant. Because in every encounter that they had throughout samsara, throughout their time together, the Buddha or the Bodhisattva practiced the virtue of becoming a king of hearts. Because he was a knight right from the start, right from the Mataposaka Jataka, where he determined, I will only look back one day after having saved, as I have saved my mother today from this vast ocean, I have saved her from drowning in this sea, so I shall save every sentient being from this vast ocean of suffering. That day he resolved that. From that day he was a Bodhisattva. That's the stuff that Bodhisattvas are made of. In Guru Hamra's own words, he said, none of you, he was looking at us, he said, none of you are still Buddhas. You are all Bodhisattvas. He said, you are all Bodhisattvas. So do what Bodhisattvas do, is what he said. If you are a Bodhisattva, do what Bodhisattvas do. Because it is a Bodhisattva that becomes a Buddha. It is not the Buddha that becomes a Buddha, is it? So you can't do what Buddhas do and become a Buddha. You got to do what Bodhisattvas do to become a Buddha. Once you are a Buddha, now you can do what Buddhas do. So what do Bodhisattvas do? Bodhisattvas shock absorb. They expound compassion. They make their presence a blessing to others. In fact, they make this world livable. It's because of the Bodhisattvas that you and I still have, that we can really live in this world as we do. Amidst all this chaos, amidst all the rife and, it's because of the Bodhisattvas. Sometimes, I'm not saying they're all Buddhists. They can be Hindus. They can be Christians, and Catholics and Muslims. They can be Jews. They can be atheists. They don't have to be of any particular religion. Because a Bodhisattva is not someone who necessarily subscribes to a particular faith. They believe in one faith though. I live for others. That is what they subscribe to. That is their motto. As a king of hearts, or as a knight of hearts, what I want you all to do is make that your motto in life. I live for others. One day you will come to a point where you breathe for others. You eat for others. You go on alms round for others. Remember Kashyap Maharatan Mahanse? He went on an alms round for others. When there were kings and emperors who invited him, along with the Buddha and the other Arahatun Mahanses, please, sir, come and take your alms with us. He sought a special permission from the Buddha. He said, Venerable Sir, please would you permit me to carry on with my routine practice of going round on alms so that I can be of service to others. So then he went to the leper. He went looking for poor people. Those who were disadvantaged. Those who had next to nothing. And he would go and stand in front of someone's house and they had nothing to eat. But, people saw this and then immediately, they went into some kind of panic mode. We got to do something. It's a Swami Mahanse. We have to do something. We have to do something. What do we have? What do we have? What do we have? We've got nothing. Oh God, we've got nothing. What can we do? Don't we even have a grain of rice? Maybe the water that we used to wash the rice, at least, if nothing else, from yesterday, because they used to save it. In those days when there were famines and droughts, people used to save that. The water that you used to wash the rice grains, they should save it and have it as a meal. Today you open the fridge and you have everything. But there were times when you don't remember. That's what it is. You and I were there. You just don't remember. Today you look shocked. Huh? What? You just don't remember. So they used to save that. And they said, at least let's maybe boil this and offer this. That's all we have. That is what we were going to survive on. My wife and I. This is all we have to live on for the rest of the day. But, it's always the Swami Mahanse comes first. Such virtue, such morality, such wisdom, that is always to be venerated. Venerable Sir, please do come in. Please don't walk away. You have done us so much good by choosing to stand out here today. Please do come in. And they would offer him whatever they could, cobble up for him to sit down, wash his feet with whatever they had as water. These are drought times. Maybe all he could had was his handkerchief to wipe his feet. And the sweat that was in there to wash it. And he would sit down. And then he would run into the house, his wife and him would boil the soup, they would call it. And they'd bring in and say, well, most Venerable Sir, this is all we have. Please do forgive us for not being able to offer you any more than this. This is all we have. Please be so kind to accept this offering. If it was just one day, you could have said, Kashyap Maharatan Mahanse made the wrong decision, don't go in on alms. It was just a poor choice that he made. And next day he would have decided, good Lord, if I go down this path, there's nothing to eat. So I better go and, have my dinner with the kings. There, you're always going to be well fed. But no, that was his lifestyle. Because he was a king of hearts. He went around looking for hearts to heal. He didn't go around looking for alms. That's the thing. You see a man with an alms bowl and you think, here's a beggar coming to get what we have. Coming to take what we have. No. Here's a man with a heart the size of a mountain. He's come to show you his alms bowl and open his heart and ask you to step in. Into that alms bowl you'll put a grain of rice. He'll open his heart and say, come on in. There's plenty of room for all of us. That's the King of Hearts. You've got to be like that, folks. That's the stuff that Rahatan Mahanses are made of. That's the kind of stuff that we all need to be. That's what Guru Hamra expects of us.